Hi National Pilates training community. Welcome to this week's NPT Community Masterclass on the Wunda chair. We're still at an intro to basic level with our programming here. We will today be using the foam roller. So if you want to grab yourself one of them, a set of hand weights that you will be comfortable with trying to take overhead as such, as well as some ankle weights as well. I've only got about 1.5 kilos here, so they don't have to be exceptionally heavy at all. Okay. What we're going to start off by doing is bringing ourselves down onto the foam roller. Just having our hand weights somewhat close to us, but they're not necessarily needed just yet. We're going to set ourselves lengthwise on the roller, trying to find just immediately just the setup of the feet being parallel and pressed into the mat. And then from there, we're going to start our breathing. I want you to breathe into the belly, filling it up, then followed by the chest, and then letting it all go. Each breath today, I want you to try and challenge expanding the space for the inhale a little bit more. On each breath. That way we're starting to get the trunk to mobilize somewhat. To get ourselves now into sort of getting closer to being able to set up for our printing in a second. So being able to make sure we're breathing in and expanding it and challenging that expansion so our body can actually find our print on the foam roller is really important. Just give me about 3 more here. Two more. And you might notice that you're starting to actually find less sort of rigidity against the roller, that you're starting to sort of mold into it and rest into it a little bit more. Last one. Good. From here we are going to start with our printing. So reiterating that pressure into the balls of the big toe, the little toe to the heel, so that tripod of pressure. And then feeding that back up through the legs and then down into the pelvis. And you can feel the flat of your sacrum on that foam roller. That pelvis is nice and long, reaching out to the back of the calves. As you start to find that softness into the low back and that weight of the rib cage into the roller. Softness in the back of the neck, in that little arch, and then weight at the crown of the head. The arms, because they go beyond the body line, you want to let them sort of come down to the ground, but feel like they slightly roll in slightly at the arm bone, not the shoulder. Just to help you with that extension behind your body line. While we're here, we're going to go into our lateral breathing, or our posterolateral breathing. So I want you to find that feedback of the roller, seeing if you can focus your breath in to the roller and then spreading laterally away from the roller. Good, we'll go 3 more. Two. Lucky last. Good, next breath out, you're just going to roll the pelvis between the legs for your imprint. Notice the feedback of the roller for the lumbar. And then breathing in to reach that pelvis out nice and long again. So the feedback of the roller comes in multiple ways. One is that you get a direct correlation of your spine pressing into it as opposed to the rest of the back. And the other part is as you roll backwards and forwards, do you start to feel the roller rolling from left to right, right to left as we start to act movement. And that spine moving and pelvic movement isn't as linear as we think or symmetrical as we think. Good, we're just going to do one more here. And then from there, you're going to roll the next one all the way up into your pelvic curl. Still using that roller as feedback, letting the spine roll off the roller. And then as you breathe out to come back down as well, getting that spine to find that roller again. And does your spine start to waver on either side of the roller, or does it start to hit at dead center? Use that as a challenge point as we roll up again to see if you can peel off the roller and then directly peel your spine back onto that roller as opposed to sitting slightly left or right. Good, we've got 3 more. Two. Final one. Good, finding that length back out through the foam roller and through the pelvis. We're going to change the order of the foundations just so it helps a little bit with our centering and challenging our centering as we load up through the different foundational movements. So we're actually going to start off with single leg lifts today. I just want you to breathe out, find the grounding through the left foot as the right leg floats up to tabletop. Good, and then we're going to bring it back down. Start to find what it actually means in the grounding foot to stabilize as you breathe out to bring the left foot up. Can you actually find that there's a little bit of dance and a rhythm in between the relationship of the rocking roller and your body, as opposed to you trying to choke down onto it with the arms and the legs? Good, one more each side. Good, once this leg plants back down, just reiterate that pressure into the feet, grounding both sides, as now the arms come behind the head. And this is why we did our single leg lifts first, to be able to try and find a bit of training in that centration as we bring the arms behind the head. However, if you feel like this is a little bit too tough, just bring your arms down by your side, and they can even slide against the floor as you breathe out to come up into your chest lift. And then breathing out to come back down. So you breathe in to prepare. Another option is with the arm slide. You would breathe out, let the arms slide lightly across the ground and even lift up. That way, if you do overbalance, you've got something to come down really quickly to help prop you up. And don't forget to use your inhale at the top, just to reiterate the lift in the chest lift, and challenge it before you breathe out to come back down. Good, we're going to do another 3 here. Still finding that little dance with the roller in your body, trying to centrate it as the roller pulls you from side to side. Last one. Then you're going to bring your arms back down to the mat. And we're going to go back through a couple more leg lifts. But this time, once you get up to the top on that first leg, I want you to reset your breath and then breathe out to bring the next leg up. Breathe out, bring the first leg back down. And then the next leg. Noticing how much more of a challenge point that is, but also that we are getting ourselves ready for our spine twists. So if you are struggling with your both feet up at tabletop, just go back to the alternating leg lifts. Breathing out, in to reset, out to come back up. Good, depending if you've got your legs doing alternating or you're bringing both legs up, you'll meet your feet either on the floor or at tabletop. And arms are going to go slightly wider for our spine twist. Now, our spine twist is a little bit different here. So as in, it's not going to go very far, and it's going to be mainly about you trying to find stability through that shoulder girdle and almost regulating the roller in a way that it stops it from rolling out and your body collapsing either side. Just one more each side. But you should start to feel those lower obliques really starting to fire. Once we're back to center, float one leg down, followed by the other. Now, depending on where your arms were for your chest lift, just reciprocate that again for our hulas. So hands behind head for those behind head. Hands out in front in a dive position for those who had them by their sides. We're now going to breathe out into our chest lift and then obliquely come over to the left. Good. Breathing out to come up and over to the right, in to come back to center. Now what you'll find is if you are of a habit of trying to swing that torso around a lot in your hulas, you'll find you'll come off that roller pretty quickly here. And so the beauty about the roller is it keeps you honest in being able to work both sides of the obliques to make sure that we're actually staying quite centered into our oblique patterning, and it's not an overly gross twist. Good, one more each side. Final one. Good, and back down. So now what you can do is we can grab our hand weights. Okay, hopefully they are quite close to you so you don't have to get off the roller, because we're already here for our arm supine work. Refinding out your pressure in your feet, you're going to bring your arms up to the ceiling and just feel the weight into the arms for a second. You shouldn't be pushing at him so much that you take the weight, you can't feel the weight in the arm. And you don't want to be hanging him so much that you feel like you're squeezing the roller or your weight's pushing your shoulder blades into the roller. You want to sort of be able to feel the weight and then almost reciprocate the press back into it, so you feel like there's this connection between the shoulder blade and the rib cage. Once you've got that, I want you to breathe in to widen out through the arms, still keeping sort of like that reciprocation in the weight. And then you breathe out to bring back. And so the reciprocation in the weight will stop you from hanging at the arm and finding the span and spread that we talk about in the Pilates method a lot. Good, we've got 3 more. Good, last one. And you start to feel maybe you might favour an arm on opening up the weight, and the roller starts to tell you that because you start to dip to the same side, which is quite fun to try and figure out. We're going to go into our scissors now, or our switches, I should say, sorry. Bring one arm down and one arm overhead, and then swapping. So as you bring the arm overhead, let the collarbone roll over the shoulder to help direct it. And then back. So you don't want to sort of overly choke up at the chest. You want to feel like that collarbone rolls over the shoulder quite freely. Cool, we're just going to do one more each side. And we're going to meet back up at the ceiling as we then take both shoulder stretch. And so once again, do you feel how one arm favours the motion than the other? Does that start to show you with the swing in the roller, dropping to the side that it likes to open up more? And you find yourself trying to counter that through your grounding of the legs and your centre. Good. We're going to do one more here, and then we're going to turn this into a circle. Now with your circle, it's an amalgamation of your overhead or your shoulder stretch and the openings. So as you go over, you're still going out to that point where you can reciprocate the weight with overhead, and then circling it around to where you can reciprocate the weight with your opening or your hug. And all you're letting it do is the same thing as you worked on in those 2 exercises. However, you just let the arms spin naturally around into those shapes as opposed to forcing a tracking. So as I go over here and I start to go out to the side, my arm sort of slightly rolls inwards to actually find that opening in my body. This is our last one, and then we're just going to reverse it. And we'll feel that arm roll outwards to get the arm overhead and back up. So as we go out to that shoulder height position, it almost feels like the dumbbells sort of roll downwards for us to get our arms overhead. And that being our last one. Good. We can put the weights back down. They can go away. We're not going to need those weights again. And we can put that foam roller to our side because we are going to need that again. Okay, so now setting up for our seated leg and footwork. You should probably have a fairly good idea on what you're going to be on, what springs you're going to be on. I'm choosing a top and a bottom. And from here, we're going to set ourselves onto the chair, finding that front edge of the sits bones again. And just like in previous classes, we're working on that sort of that push-pull mechanism of the chair. Being able to start with heels on, thinking length out through the feet, but not to the point where you're trying to over pull at the toes. Let the shape of the pedal almost sort of inspire how your toes sit with a long sort of round position or a lengthened position without them scrunching or without them extending as we start to go through our seated leg and footwork. Breathing out to press down, breathing in to pull that pedal back up and into you. Almost like you're trying to pull your heels in towards your buttocks and soak up that space. You know, our pace is slowly picking up, not too much, just to reiterate our work that we've been doing over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And starting to put that challenge into it. Good as we go into our toes, finding that toe pressure. Once again, the pedal inspires how you work with your toes, finding that length around the pedal. Two more, finding that pace is, you know, at a point of challenge. Good, then we're going to go click the heels together, wrap the toes once again around the bridge of that pedal and work on your pace again. And your pace should be where you are still in control, but you're finding a challenge in controlling it. That it's not overly perfect, but it's pretty close. That you're still staying centered and still finding that working within the body and the hips to be able to move the pedal and stay centered. Last one. Pressing out into our wide position. So heels are on the pedal here. You might find that you need a little bit more sort of spiral outwards as you lift that pedal up now, but not to the point where you're sort of pushing the knees outwards. It's definitely a sort of a spin along its own axis at the femur. Two more. Good, and then from there we're onto our toes, wide for the same. Continuing to work on that pressure at the toes and also that pace being of challenge. Good, last one. Then we're going to come in, and before we go to our singles, we're going to just do our calf press. So it is on the same weight as our leg press, or as our seated leg and footwork, or doubles. So I want you to, you're going to stand up, find the pedal with your feet, and then get that top of the kneecap over the edge of the chair. You should line it up so you're almost like fingertip distance at that top of the chair, and that your back leg almost lines up from the head down to the tail, so you're sort of in somewhat of a straight line. Now, being at an introductory and basic level, we can keep our fingertips here, just so we've got a bit of understanding on how to keep our body set in space, but there's no real weight on my fingertips. They're just there to tell me where I need to keep holding my body in space. Then as far as the pedal pressing is going, don't try and just slap the pedal down. See if you can almost wrap at the foot to actually almost paddle the pedal backwards and downwards. So following that arc of the chair. And then as you come back up, feeling like the heel glides backwards to pull the pedal upwards and inwards. So then all of a sudden we're following that arc of the chair again. And then you'll find that there is definitely a stability work happening in the pelvis, but a lot of that work's coming back down around the foot and those deeper layers of the calf. Just give me 2 more. Before we swap. So as we swap, bring the pedal up to its stop position before gently hopping off, and then bring the other foot on. Just swapping over our setup. It should be almost exactly the same. So you're replacing one foot with the other, finding our line, and our setup of that standing leg is still closing, not overly into the pressing leg, but as in like we don't want it to be opened out to the rest of the room. So that you are squaring up and driving through that back leg being of importance. Then as we're going through our press, remembering our little push-pull theory on how we integrate our work into the chair from the foot and those deeper layers of the calf. Good, 3 more. Two. Last one. And then we're going to bring it back and step off. And from there, what I want you to do now is we're just going to drop our spring tension down to somewhat that's going to be a challenge for our single. So I've got 1 top and a bottom. I'm going to change that down to probably about 2 bottom, okay, for my single leg and footwork, okay? Now, sitting back up for our singles. Once again, we're sitting on that front edge of our sits bones. And, you know, depending on how tight you are, your leg might not be all the way up, but you want to sort of pull it up to a point of challenge. And even that's got a slight bend in it is completely fine too. As we just work through our heels for about 6 to 8. Same rules apply for the doubles. Now the only thing is now is because you're pressing with single that you're not sort of trying to rock sideways into it or collapse into it to find the press. Last one. And then we'll swap heels today and go the other side. Once again, finding that free leg challenge point of sitting and working with that. 3 more. 2. Lucky last. Then we're onto our toes. And I'll point my toes for this one on the free leg. Notice how my press isn't as big on my toes because I've got more body in that cavity because I've included my foot now. And I find it a lot tougher because I am slightly tighter in the hips. Good, swapping. Reiterating that closure like I've just had to, from the hip to the leg to the hip. So keep myself sitting upright. 2 more. Good, and then back. Nice. So that is our leg and footwork done. What we're going to do now is we are going to go into our washerwoman 2s. Now, coincidentally, I've got 2 bottom springs on, which is perfect for my washerwoman 2s. You might be looking at the same or even one top. So hopefully it's close to what you were doing on your single leg work on as well. We're going to set ourselves up behind the chair, okay? And from there, we're just going to breathe out to roll down to find the pedal. Once we have found that pedal, I want you to breathe in to roll the pedal down via the trunk. And once your weight starts to feel like it pitches forward, that's when I want you to work your torso into the pedal to continue pressing it. And then we'll breathe out to sort of cat stretch back or flex the spine back. So once again, you start to breathe in, you're pressing down through the pedal. Once you feel like your weight starts to shift forward, that's when you sort of counter it with the torso pressing forward and the butt pulling back. So it gets us into that long washerwoman 2 shape and back, as opposed to sort of us trying to flatten at the start and then we sort of don't get that spinal control. We don't get that good hip flexion control. And then it sort of can become a bit of a nothing exercise, except for maybe a potential hamstring stretch for us tight legs people. Good, 3 more. Two. Last one. And then on this one, we continue to breathe out as we roll all the way back up, like we're out of our roll up, or sorry, roll down. Now I'm going to break order a little bit again. We're going to go into some side reaches, okay, before we spend some time on the floor. So with our side reaches, I'm once again using the same spring tension again, which is 2 bottom, which is perfect for me. So once again, you're sort of going to be around about the same that you were for your washerwoman's for your side reach for its feedback, okay? So whether it's sort of like 1 top, 2 bottom, potentially in middle if you're quite light. We're going to press the pedal down, set ourselves up. Well, we're going to press the pedal down with the arm till it's set and we feel it in the shoulder. We're going to set our pelvis up so it's nice and squared, and that our full foot is being pressed into the ground, okay? From there, arm comes out to the side. I want you to breathe in to press the pedal, to use that as a way to open up through our ribs as we're pushing outwards. We're then breathing out to bring it back. So we don't want the weight so heavy that it fully pushes ourselves back up, that we get to use our breath to find some active lateral flexion in here. That weight of that spring should only be just enough support that as we go down, we're finding our reach and our length into our lateral flexion, as opposed to being really sort of collapsed or rigid as we go through. So we're just going to do another 2 here. Good, as we go to the other side. Once again, refine that setup. Find the relationship with the pedal, how it almost tells you how to actually shape your motion, which is over and down, so into our lateral flexion as opposed to being too flat. Good, last one. Good. Now from here we're going to pop our ankle weights on and our foam roller, and we're going to lay down on the ground with the foam roller under our pelvis. Okay, so once we have our ankle weights on and our foam roller is under our pelvis, we're going to bring our hands around to behind the foam roller, and that foam roller should feel like it sits almost at the flat of the sacrum there. Then we're going to bring the legs up towards the ceiling. Now from there, I want you to find that you're not collapsing down into that cavity that's created, but reaching that pelvis back out, sort of like what we do when we set up our printing position, and also the end of the pelvic curl, that we've got that pelvic reach. Then from there, you're going to breathe in and let the legs open up and back. Now as you work with this, you're trying to keep those legs over the roller, and you'll know when you're there because your lower abs start to feel like they have to engage to stop your legs from getting too far away from you and for you to go in, and you not going into your low back. So you want to feel like you can get that feedback into the abdominals. That's usually a really good place for your legs to be. Good, as we're breathing in, we're finding the opening of the adductors, a bit of spiral in the legs. And as we breathe out, we bring it back. We're going to do about another 5. And as you're doing these, go to where you can actually actively spread the legs out, not hang into them. And for me, being very tight in my adductors, my range isn't very big, so yours might be further out. Last one. Once we've found that our self back to center, just reiterate that pelvis reaching over the roller. The low abs are engaging to stop the legs from pulling you out. As we then go into our scissors. As we work through the scissor here, we're trying to span through the legs, reaching out through the hip as much as we can, and a good straight knee. And so you want to sort of get to that bottom point and then feel like you're really trying to soak out or span out of that space as much as you can, that you're not sort of just letting it flop down into there, that we're trying to expand as much of that space as we can, take up as much as we can. Good, we'll just do 2 more each way. Good. As that we then now turn into bicycles. Now the bicycles is exactly like the scissor. You go down to that long position, then you let the knee bend and pull through into that short position right at the last minute. So we're trying to find our leg for as long as possible, and short for as short as possible. As we're dragging it back through, or bending that knee, that we're not trying to lift the thigh up to facilitate the knee bend. We actually want to try and stay down, so we're opening up that tissue at the front of the quad. Good, then we're going to reverse it. And the same rules apply. Lucky last. And then you can bring your knees into your chest just for a quick hug and take your ankle weights off. So foam roller will also come out off from behind you. We won't need our ankle weights anymore. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to set up for our knee knee stretch, okay? So with our foam roller knee stretch, what I want you to do is you're going to bring your knees onto the roller and bring your hands out, okay? And so you want to bring your hands out and sort of, it's not quite a quadruped position, it's actually further out than that. Just so you can actually find A, the rounding in the back, but B, some space to be able to pull the roller in on. Spread your fingertips, push firmly through the ground, and find that flexion in the spine. From there, all you need to do is you need to breathe out and pull the knees in while keeping your flexion in your spine. Arms have got a job to keep you steady, not to help with the pull. Pull comes from abs and hips, or front of hips. And you might be finding that you feel quite tender on the foam roller. And if you are, you've got to ask yourself, are you not taking your weight out of the roller enough, potentially? So getting that lift into our spinal flexion and our lift into our abs and hips to take the weight of the thighs, or the shins, sorry, off the roller. Just give me two more. Last one. And then back. Good. From there, we're going to go into our back extension, okay, being the basic swan, okay. And so just coming back into the work back up onto the chair, okay. I wanted for us to be able to do our side stuff first, in specifically for that last exercise, hence why we did our side reach early, okay. But then going into our basic swan here now, you know, finding that because of the hip work and the ab work that we've just done, how does that start to place together in a way that we can actually control the holding of the legs into our basic swan, okay? And because of that, you know, being able to piece it all together. And so as we're piecing it all together, you know, can we actually find separation of the spinal column to the hips? Can we actually find, now that it's in reverse, that the hips are the stabilizing and the legs are the stabilizing factor, as opposed to the spine and trunk, which has been the way for things like our legs over series and our knee stretch, okay? So all we do is that we take our skills that we've just developed and learnt in the last 2 exercises and put them into here. So we find that reach out through the body. I've gone with the top spring, okay? You know, you might want to adjust to being a little bit lighter if you're quite light in your frame. But I wouldn't go too much heavier because we still want to be able to challenge our back extension. And so from here I can feel the heat in my hips already from the last 2 exercises. So I'm going to use that to my advantage and find that reach of space that we were working on, okay? Once we've got that reach of space, I then can breathe in to pull that pedal up. And breathe out to bring it down while continuing to find that reach of space through the pelvis. Breathing in, we find that extension, pulling that pedal towards our hips. And as we breathe out, trying to keep that shape as we come back down and slowly unravel it at the bottom. Good, last one. And I just want you to stay halfway down, just so we can do some quick shoulder presses with elbows out to the side, holding that space in through the legs and torso. 3 more. 2. Last one. Keep it there. Just for something different, we're going to do some swimming kicks, making sure you've still got that length out through the body so the kick comes directly at the hip. For 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we rest. Bring ourselves back up. And I just want you to spend some time here with your hands onto the chair and feet flat. And just start to flex the back, taking out any sort of, or settling out through all that tissue that you've just been working into your extension. So similar to what we'd choose as a rest position. And you can sort of imprint and unimprint the pelvis while you're here. Sort of like a cat, or a cat stretch. And then does it start to get larger and larger into more of a cat stretch where we're really rolling the pelvis, flexing the spine, and then breathing in through to our neutral and eventually extension. So we could call this a standing cat stretch, I guess. Just to settle down that body after the work we've done. Good, last one. And you roll yourself all the way back up to standing. And so that was our NPT community class for this week with the Wunda chair incorporating some foam roller and some weights. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.